I should have walked past those children that night. God knows I would have lived an easier life if I had. But when a girl with a broken leg begged the snow not to take her baby brother, I knew I'd already sinned the moment I thought about leaving. He found them first, Wade Sterling, the millionaire rancher who'd sworn he was done saving anyone. 3 feet from death, the girl still refused to let go of the wooden measuring stick she'd used to drag her infant brother through the blizzard. The bruises on her arms told the story she was too scared to speak. The letter hidden under a church stone told the rest. Forged guardianship, stolen land rights, a man in a gold glove who'd turned the law into a weapon. Wade didn't know it yet, but the moment he lifted those children off the ground, he inherited a war. One fought against a killer who carried a badge in one pocket and a Bible in the other. Before dawn, torches would circle his ranch. Before sunrise, someone would bleed for a piece of paper older than them all. And before this story ends, the child he swore to protect will offer herself as bait. Stay with us till the very end. This tale will sit heavy in your chest. Subscribe for more Western stories, and let me know where you're watching from in the comments below. The girl had stopped feeling her own feet 2 miles back. Now she dragged her baby brother through the snow the way a dying mule drags a busted wagon. Slow, crooked, refusing to quit, though every breath burned like frost-bitten needles. The wind came screaming off the ridge, sharp enough to flay skin, carrying the kind of cold that made a child believe Christmas angels had turned their faces away. She kept one hand locked around the bundle where Noe lay, the other pressed hard against her broken leg to keep the bone from grinding. Every few yards she paused, bent low, and listened for that tiny bell tied to his wrist. If the bell rattled, he was alive. If it didn't, Lord, please don't let me hear nothing. A smear of blood trailed behind them across the white, thin at first, then darker, thicker, as her strength failed. The girl didn't dare look back. Looking back meant slowing down, and slowing down meant dying out here. Noe whimpered once, a soft, wet sound that was more memory than voice. She tightened the torn blanket around him, then around herself, though she knew she needed the warmth more than he did. "Hush, baby," she whispered, breath cracking. "You're gonna stay with me. Mama said so." But Mama was gone, and the man who'd taken her place in their house had promised, "You'll come home when I say." I would rather die on this road than go back to him. The thought hit like a lash, sharp, private, quick as prayer. The storm reared higher along the valley, swirling hard enough to erase fences, trees, tracks. Her vision tunneled into one thin ribbon of gray. Somewhere in that gray, she thought she saw a glimmer, warm light, or maybe the last trick the cold played before stealing a soul. She dragged Noe toward it anyway. Her arms shook, her jaw clenched so tight her teeth hummed. Then the bell stopped. No chiming, no whisper of movement, just the wind. "Please." Her voice wasn't louder than a moth's wings. "Please, God, not now." She dropped to her knees, yanked the blanket open with fingers stiff as twigs. Noe's lips were pale, his breath thin as smoke. She cupped his face, pressed her cheek against his. Nothing but cold. Her heart stuttered. The world shrank into a hollow ache. Somewhere far inside, something cracked. She tried to stand and couldn't. The leg gave out, folding under her like wet paper. She slumped forward, forehead hitting the snow. The cold bit deep, but she barely felt it. She pulled Noe close again, shielding him with what little was left of her body. "Don't leave me," she whispered. "Don't you dare leave me." That was when she heard it. A horse. Not the heavy, hurried hooves of the man who hunted them, but a steady, measured lope, confident, unafraid of the storm. The girl forced her eyes open. A dark shape moved toward them, growing larger through the white haze. A coat of black sheepskin, a wide-brimmed hat crusted with snow, and beneath it, a man who rode like someone who'd made peace with death long ago but still fought it for sport. Wade Sterling swung out of the saddle before the horse even stopped. One look at the child lying half-buried in the drift, another at the bundle in her arms, and something inside him jolted hard enough to crack the ice around his heart. He knelt, gloved hands moving with the calm precision of a man who'd once held his own dying child and knew exactly what not to waste time on. "Easy, child," he murmured, brushing snow from her lashes. "I've got you now." His voice carried the kind of quiet faith only frontier widowers kept. Faith built from loss, held together with stubbornness and the memory of Christmas hymns sung beside empty chairs. She tried to speak but only gasped. He touched her forehead, then her leg, then lifted Noe and felt for breath. A moment passed. "Please breathe, boy," he prayed in the old way. Not with words, but with need. Noe twitched. The tiny bell on his wrist gave a faint, miraculous chime. Wade's exhale shook once. "That's it. Good boy." He stripped off his cloak, wrapped both children inside it, and stood. The weight nearly pulled him to his toes, but he tightened his jaw and shifted them higher. "You're coming with me," he said, not asking, not hesitating. The wind roared again, but he walked straight into it, boots carving a steady trail through the storm. Behind him, the girl's blood marked where she'd fallen and where she'd been found. The storm swallowed the prints almost instantly, but the trail was already written, one that would drag half a county into judgment before dawn. And somewhere far back along the Seaton ridge, another set of hooves stirred, closer, following. Christmas was coming, and the devil wasn't late. Wade Sterling kicked the door open with his shoulder, snow spilling across the hardwood as he carried both children into the warm glow of the ranch kitchen. The fire snapped in the stone hearth, a single ribbon of heat reaching for them like the hand of a desperate preacher begging someone, anyone, to stay alive tonight. Maria Delgado looked up from the stove, wooden spoon freezing mid-air. "Santo Dios, Wade, what have you brought in?" He didn't answer. He knelt by the fire, undoing the cloak with slow, steady motions, the way a man unwraps dynamite, careful, reverent, prepared for it to break his world open. The girl's face was blue around the edges, lashes weighed down by frost. She tried to sit, failed, then lifted the bundle in her arms toward Maria as if offering a confession. "He's cold," she whispered. I tried to keep him warm." Maria's breath caught. "Mija, what happened to you?" Wade held up a hand, quiet, firm. "Heat first, questions after." He turned the girl slightly so the firelight hit her right side. That's when he saw the leg, splinted with a strip of torn shirt, soaked through with dried blood and new blood and something in between. The bone hadn't punched through the skin, but it was close. Too close. "Get Price," Wade said. "Now!" Maria didn't waste a second. She seized her shawl, vanished out the back door, and the winter swallowed her whole. Wade lifted Noe from the girl's arms and brought him to the stove. He warmed a cloth in hot water, squeezed it out, and pressed it against the child's chest in gentle circles. Noe flinched, a faint, fluttering breath, and Wade felt something twist under his ribs. Lord, let this be enough. Let one small miracle hold. The girl watched every movement with the desperate stillness of a wounded fawn. When Wade moved to check her leg, she jerked away so violently she nearly toppled the chair. Easy, he said quietly. You're safe here. Safe. The word rang in the kitchen like a lie testing its own strength. Her eyes flicked to the door, then the windows, then back to him. He's coming, she whispered. He follows tracks. He always follows. Wade froze, not in fear, those years were long behind him, but in calculation. Someone was close enough that a half-frozen child could still feel his shadow. He reached for a knife on the counter, not to threaten her, but to cut her outer layers without moving her broken leg. As he lifted the hem of her sleeve, the firelight revealed the marks, burn scars, small circles in a cruel pattern, already healed but unmistakable. He stopped breathing for a moment. Maria had told stories of men who burned discipline into children, as though pain could teach obedience. Wade had always assumed those men lived in bad towns far from here. Turns out one lived close enough for a girl to flee barefoot into a blizzard. The girl saw him looking and yanked her arm back. "Don't touch it," she said. Not angry, ashamed. "I'm not touching the hurt," he murmured. "I'm seeing what someone else did." The front door slammed open. Dr. Price trudged in, mustache iced, spectacles fogged. "You drag me out in this weather, Wade. Someone better be dying." He stopped the moment he saw the children. Well, all right then." He washed quickly at the basin, rolled up his sleeves, and knelt by the girl without a word. Price didn't do sympathy. He did work. Wade respected him for it. While Price examined the leg, the girl held something tight against her chest. At first, Wade thought it was another scrap of blanket. Then the firelight caught on carved wood, a long, narrow stick marked with shallow notches. "Child," he said slowly, "what's that you've got there?" Her fingers tightened. "You can't take it." "I'm not taking anything. I'm asking." She hesitated, breath quick, wild, then she shook her head. "If he finds it, he gets everything." Price glanced up. Everything meaning? But the girl closed her mouth, jaw locking like a trap. She wasn't ready. Not tonight. Not with fear still clinging to her like snow. Wade straightened, hearing the wind strike the walls with a deeper, heavier force. A man who'd lived alone as long as he had could feel when trouble bent the air. Someone out there was coming, and the storm wasn't going to keep him away. Noe suddenly cried, a thin, piercing wail. Price jolted. "That's good," he muttered, adjusting the warm cloth. "Crying means breath. Breath means life." The girl sagged, tears slipping free before she could stop them. She wiped them fast, embarrassed. "Please, don't let him take us," she whispered. "I'd rather die here." Wade felt that sentence like a gunshot shot to the spine. "I've heard those words before," a jagged memory whispered. His daughter's last fevered plea. He knelt beside her, met her eyes, and said the only vow a man like him still believed he had the right to make. "No one's taking you," Wade murmured. "Not tonight. Not ever without going through me." Thunder cracked against the house, not from the sky but from the ridge. A single gunshot. Far, but not far enough. Someone had found their trail, and he wasn't alone. Dr. Price worked fast. His hands were steady, but his jaw had tightened into that square, battle-worn shape Wade remembered from the war. A man only looked like that when he'd seen wounds on a child he wished he hadn't lived long enough to recognize. He set the girl's leg, wrapped it tight, and muttered, "If she'd walked 10 more yards, the bone would have come through." Then he leaned back, wiped his glasses, and said the one thing that made Wade's stomach turn. "These scars aren't from the storm." The girl flinched. Not from pain, she'd already locked that away, but from the truth moving too close. Wade lowered himself beside her again, boots still wet, coat half unbuttoned. "Child," he said, voice gentler than he'd meant it to be. "You're safe in this house. You tell me what I need to know." Her eyes drifted toward the door, as if expecting a shadow to barge through it. "He'll come," she whispered. "He always comes, even when the snow tries to hide us." "Who?" Price asked. She looked at the fire, not them. "The man they say is our guardian." Wade felt the words hit like a hammer. The law could be a blessing on Christmas morning, or the devil's own handwriting when placed in the wrong hands. The girl pressed the carved stick closer to her chest. "He wants this. He says it belongs to him now." "What is it?" Wade asked. She swallowed hard. "Mama said it's the reason he married her. The reason he hurt her. The reason I buried her where nobody would find." Her breath broke. She clenched her jaw until no sound escaped. "If I cry, he wins." The thought flickered across her face like a shadow. Price exchanged a look with Wade. One of those silent conversations men have when they know a storm bigger than weather is about to break. Before Wade could speak, the back door opened again. Maria re-entered, snow on her shawl, cheeks flushed. She set a pot of water on the stove, then touched the girl's shoulder with the back of her knuckles. "Mija, I'm here. You breathe with me now." The girl breathed, once shaky but real. Then a distant sound rolled down the valley. Hooves, many of them. Slow, heavy, organized. Not a hunter this time. A party. Maria's face went pale. "Dios nos guarde." Wade rose to his full height, gripping the edge of the table. "They're coming already." His voice didn't rise. It lowered like a man settling into a familiar grief. "Price, how long until she can move?" "She can't," Price said. "Not tonight. Not tomorrow either." The girl stiffened. "If I stay, you'll die," she said to Wade. "He brings men. Always." "I've seen men," Wade said. "And I've buried some." He checked his revolver, methodical, not rushed. "Nobody's taking you. I gave you my word." Outside, the hooves stopped. Silence pressed against the windows like frost. Then 3 hard knocks. Not polite, not frantic. Confident, the kind of knock a man makes when he believes the law stands behind him. Wade didn't open. He shifted the children behind the table, then stepped to the door. "Price, keep them low," a voice called through the wood, smooth as oil and twice as cold. "Mr. Sterling, I'm told you've found 2 children who belong to me." The girl froze, breath slicing short. "That's him." Her fingers dug into the stick of carved wood. Blood rushed into her face, then drained out just as fast. Wade felt the house tighten around her fear like a noose. He placed a hand on the doorknob, but didn't turn it. "State your name," he said. "Silas Crowe," the voice replied. "By court order, legal guardian of Lena and Noah Bennett. I have papers, signed and sealed." Legal guardian. Wade had heard that term wielded like a blessing, but tonight it carried the weight of a coffin lid. Price whispered to Maria, "That man shouldn't have guardianship of a dog." Maria crossed herself. Wade didn't open the door. Instead, he asked, "If you're their guardian, where were you when they were freezing to death?" A pause. Too long to be natural. "Their running away is unfortunate," Silas answered. "Children misunderstand discipline." At that word, discipline, the girl curled inward, shoulders trembling. Wade felt something old and dangerous rise in him. "Lord, give me restraint," he thought, though he wasn't sure he wanted it. Silas's voice grew sharper. "Mr. Sterling, open this door. The law is on my side." Wade looked back at the girl. She stared at him wide-eyed, blood on her sleeve, breath thin, as if hanging between two worlds, one she'd crawled out of, and one she didn't yet trust to save her. "If the law's on your side," Wade said quietly, "then the law can wait until morning." Silas Crowe knocked again. 3 crisp, deliberate raps. Then footsteps receded, not leaving, just repositioning. Price's hand hovered near the lamp. "He's not gone." "No," Wade said. "He's gathering." The girl whispered, "He won't stop. Not until he gets the stick. Mama said it can ruin him." Wade lifted the cloak around her shoulders, tightening it gently. "Child," he said, voice low, firm, steady, "nothing gets to you tonight." But outside, the wind shifted. The storm didn't ease. It listened. And somewhere in the dark, Silas Crowe smiled. The storm thickened through the night, piling against the windows like a living thing. Inside Wade Sterling's kitchen, the fire fought hard to keep its shape. Shadows leaned long across the floorboards, stretching toward the table where Lena sat, with her arms locked around the carved stick, as if it were the last bone in her body that hadn't yet been broken. Dr. Price had stepped into the pantry to mix a tonic. Maria heated broth on the stove, humming a low Christmas hymn in Spanish, something about shepherds, forgiveness, and the way God sometimes sent his help through unexpected hands. Wade stood at the table, head bowed, fingers resting on the stick Lena refused to release. He didn't try to take it, just let his touch rest there, steady as a mountain. "Child," he said softly, "let me look." Lena's breath hitched. "If he sees you touch it, he'll know I told." "You haven't told me a thing." Wade kept his tone slow, level. "I'm just studying wood." Her grip loosened by a fraction. Not trust, merely exhaustion. Wade lifted the stick into the firelight. The moment he brushed off the snow-crusted grit, the notches came into focus. Precise, shallow, evenly spaced. A surveyor's hand, not a carpenter's. Price re-entered, drying his spectacles with his sleeve. "Let me see that." He held it closer to the lamp, eyes narrowing. "This is a gauge stick, Wade. 19th century, water rights era." Lena stiffened. "Mama said it proves who owned the spring first and who lied after." Price lowered the stick, his voice dropping with the weight of history. 1862. That's when the territorial judges granted senior rights based on original measurement. If someone forged claims later, this little piece of wood could undo half the land papers in Cold Creek Valley. Maria crossed herself. No wonder the devil wants it. Wade's jaw worked. So the girl's mother kept the original measurement. And married a man, Price said grimly, who likely realized its value before she did. Lena stared at the floor, voice barely audible. He burned the old house to find it. He said Mama was hiding his future from him. He said God gave him the land, and we were standing in his way. The room hollowed. Maria stopped singing. Price swallowed a curse. Wade leaned in. Child, what did your mama tell you to do with this? Lena hesitated, then whispered, keep it safe. Keep Noe alive. And tell someone who won't be scared to say the truth out loud. Wade felt that sentence lodge deep. He had once promised a dying woman, his own, that he'd keep their daughter safe. He'd failed then. I won't fail this child. He set the stick down gently. Price, you can testify this is authentic? Damn right I can. Wood grain, territorial markings, historic notches. This thing's worth more than a coffin full of railroad gold. And Silas Crowe knows it? He knows. Enough, Price said. He's tied to the Cold Creek Railway deal. They need fresh water to run the line. If this stick proves he falsified claims, he goes under, Wade finished. A heavy thud hit the side of the house, snow sliding off the roof, or something brushing against the siding. Wade moved to the window. The yard was nothing but swirling white. He's watching, Lena whispered. He doesn't sleep when he's hunting. Wade turned back toward the table. Then we call someone who hunts bigger things than him. Price frowned. You're not thinking of... Yes, Wade said. The telegraph office. Federal inspection. Water rights tribunal. Price shook his head. Sterling, if Crowe sees that message leave the valley, he'll come down with every hired gun west of the divide. He's coming anyway. Wade pulled his coat on. I'm buying us time. But as he reached for his hat, Lena spoke again, voice cracked but clear. There's a letter, too. Mama wrote it before she died. Price froze. Maria gasped. Wade pivoted. Where is it? He asked. Lena's fingers trembled on the blanket. I hid it. In the place where people kneel. Where voices echo when no one's listening. The church? Maria whispered. Lena nodded. Behind the loose stone under the altar. But he watches the road. He'll see you go. Wade weighed the risk. Blizzard, nightfall, injured children, a man with papers and guns circling his land. He almost said tomorrow. He almost said when the storm dies. But the truth cut through him like a winter blade. If Silas Crowe got that letter first, everything inside this house, every breath, every promise, would be buried. He drew a slow breath. Prayer tangled in it. Maria, he said, bar the doors. Price, stay close to the children. Then Wade stepped toward the back hall, hand on his revolver, boots echoing on the wooden floor. Outside, somewhere in the dark, a second gunshot cracked across the valley. The storm didn't swallow it. It carried it straight to the door. Morning didn't break so much as crawl. The storm dulled into a gray hush, and with the first thin ribbon of light came the sound Wade Sterling had expected all night. The clatter of horses, too many to be accidental. Maria peeked from behind the curtain. "Señor, they brought a patrol." Not militia, not ranch hands. Men wearing county badges that gleamed even in winter fog. Wade stepped to the door before anyone could knock. If they wanted to rattle his house, they'd have to meet his eyes first. The first horse stopped so close its breath steamed across the porch. Sheriff Alden Dawson sat the saddle, jaw tight, face weathered, but unreadable. At his side rode Silas Crowe, dressed like a Sunday attorney, coat spotless, gloves clean, boots polished enough to shame a preacher. Silas tipped his hat. "Mr. Sterling, good morning." His voice carried the calm of a man who'd already written the ending he expected everyone else to follow. Wade didn't return the courtesy. "State your purpose." Dawson held up a folded paper sealed with the county stamp. "We're here for the Bennett children. Court order." Inside the house, the girl froze. Price lifted a finger to his lips. Noe whimpered. Maria pressed him close. Wade didn't take the paper. "Show me." Dawson resisted a sigh and unfolded the document. Lines of legal script. Judge's signature. Seal. Perfect. Crisp. Clean. Like sin washed too fast. Silas Crowe gestured lightly. "The law recognizes me as guardian. Their mother named me executor of all remaining affairs. These children are wards of the county until placed appropriately." Wade stared at him. "They nearly froze to death under your guardianship." Silas's smile didn't reach his eyes. "Children run away, especially confused ones." Confused. A word so gentle it bruised. Price pushed the door wider from inside. "Confused children don't get burn scars in patterns only a cigar end can make." Dawson shifted in his saddle, eyes flicking to Silas in a way that said, "I'm listening, but don't make me choose right now." Silas didn't blink. "I have never harmed any child, and unless Dr. Price plans to accuse me publicly, I suggest he step back from inciting a mob." His gaze cut to the stick in Lena's hands, barely visible behind Price's coat. "Bring them out. Both." Lena's grip tightened until her knuckles blanched. Noe whimpered again. Wade stepped into the doorway, blocking the view. "They're not going anywhere. The girl can't walk. The boy can barely breathe. They're under doctor's care." Silas's tone cooled. "You're obstructing a lawful retrieval. And you're trying to move a child with a fractured leg through winter roads," Wade said. "Anyone with sense calls that attempted murder." Dawson cleared his throat. "We can give you time to stabilize them, 48 hours maybe. But the order is valid, Wade." Price stepped beside Wade, eyes sharp behind fogged spectacles. 72 hours, minimum, and I'll sign medical attestation for it." Silas's smile thinned. 72? No, 48 is generous." The girl suddenly leaned forward from behind Wade, voice cracking through the tension. "If he takes us, we die." Every badge on the porch went still. Silas's jaw flexed. "Lena, you're upset. You don't mean that." She held up the carved stick, small, ancient, powerful in her trembling hands. "He wants this, not us. Mama said he'd kill to get it." Dawson frowned. "Crow, what is that?" Silas didn't answer. Not fast enough, anyway. His eyes betrayed the truth before his mouth tried to mask it. Wade saw it. Price saw it. Even the horses sensed something wrong. "Mr. Sterling," Silas said, recovering his poise, "my patience is narrowing. If you interfere, I'll have the judge sign a writ for harboring minors." Wade stepped forward once, boots landing heavy on the porch plank. "You bring a writ," he said evenly. "I'll bring evidence, photographs, medical reports, and a telegraph already headed to federal inspectors." Silas's pupils constricted. Maria whispered inside, "Dios está con nosotros." Dawson exhaled, long and slow. "All right," he said finally. 72 hours. After that, the children come with us unless a federal override arrives." "I'll take it," Wade said. Silas jerked his reins viciously, his horse dancing sideways. "This isn't over. This house cannot protect them from me." Wade didn't lift his voice. "This house protects whoever God sends to its door." Silas turned, but not before giving Lena a last look. Cold, exact, measuring. The kind of look that followed a person into the dark. The riders moved off, snow crunching beneath hooves. Dawson stayed a moment longer, eyes dragging over the windows, the roofline, the smoke rising from the chimney. "Lock your doors, Wade," he muttered. "And don't let that man inside. Paper or no paper." When the patrol vanished down the road, Wade shut the door and bolted it. The house felt smaller, warmer, more fragile. Price blew out a tense breath. "Well, that buys us time." Wade shook his head. "No, it buys him time too." Lena lowered the stick into her lap. "He'll come back," she whispered. Wade knelt to her level, voice low but fierce. "Let him. This time he won't find you alone." But in the valley below, a rider broke off from the patrol and lingered, watching the house from a distance, waiting, counting. By midday, the storm had eased, but the valley hadn't. Something colder than winter had settled over Sterling Ranch, an unseen tightening, like a rope drawn quiet around a man's throat. Wade checked each window, each hinge, each line of sight. He wasn't a paranoid man, but he'd lived long enough to recognize the shape of danger when it circled without showing itself. In the barn, he positioned 2 lanterns where their glow would expose shadows. In the loft, he dusted off an old Spencer rifle he hadn't touched since the summer he lost everything. "I thought I'd buried this life," he told himself. "But tonight it rides again." Inside, Maria kept the children close to the hearth. Noe slept in a nest of quilts, warm enough to breathe soft, steady breaths. Lena sat upright beside him, pale but alert, fingers resting on the carved stick as though it might vanish if she blinked too long. Dr. Price arranged his medical kit on the kitchen table. "I'll say this once more," he murmured to Wade. "Odessa frostbite, broken leg, trauma. If you move her more than the length of this room, you'll undo everything I just fixed." "I'm not moving her," Wade said. "I'm fortifying around her." Price eyed him. "You're building a fortress." "No," Wade replied. "I'm building time." From the corner, Lena watched Wade's movements with a child's distrust sharpened by survival. Finally, she spoke. "He never comes through the front door first. He sends men to the back." Wade turned. "How many?" She shook her head. "Sometimes 2, sometimes 6. Depends how angry he is." Maria whispered, Ay, Dios. Wade knelt beside the girl. Lena, listen to me. If he sends men tonight, they won't get near you. This house was built before the railroad even dreamed of cutting this valley. Stone walls, good sight lines, a cellar nobody knows the shape of. His voice lowered. But I need you to tell me something. Why did he chase you in a blizzard? What changed? Her eyes flickered to the stick. He found the map Mama drew. What map? The one showing where the spring first rose, the day she met Papa. She hid it under the bedboards. He tore the house apart trying to find this stick, and the letter she wrote before she... Lena's voice cracked, a soft, broken sound swallowed by December air. Price moved quietly toward the children. We need to document her injuries. Photographs, measurements, scars. That sheriff may be on the fence, but a federal judge won't be. Lena stiffened, pulling her sleeve down. No pictures. Her eyes brimmed, but no tears fell. If he finds out I told anyone, he'll kill Noe first. Wade's jaw locked. He doesn't touch that child again. Price studied Wade with a slow nod. Then let's do it careful. No flash, no shutter noise, just enough to prove the pattern. The doctor lifted his old camera, an Eastern box model with a cloth, shroud, and wiped the lens. Maria dimmed the lamps to soften the glare. Lena reluctantly unrolled the sleeve, offering the scars one by one. Circular burns, thin welt lines, bruises older than winter. Price's hand trembled as he adjusted the shutter. Sweet Lord, who does this to a girl? Lena answered without blinking. Someone who thinks God is on his side. Silence weighed the room, heavy, accusing. Outside, a horse screamed, short, panicked, cut off too fast. Wade stepped to the window. Nothing moved except the wind. Someone's testing range, he murmured. Maria swallowed. Senor, they're here. Wade strode toward the front door and lifted the latch only high enough to peer through the crack. Down the slope, near the tree line, a rider sat still as a tombstone. A second rider joined him, then a third, watching, counting the windows, marking distance. Price cursed under his breath. He's forming a perimeter. Wade closed the door. Tight, final. Then we stay ahead, he said. Price, pack your notes. Maria, keep the children close. I'm checking the cellar. But Lena's voice cut through the tension. You can't go alone. That's when he takes people. Wade turned back. Her small form looked lost against the wide kitchen wall, but her voice carried an iron truth. Child, he said gently, I've been alone most of my life. I know, she whispered. That's how he finds you. The words pierced deeper than gunfire. Wade forced a steady breath. I'll be back in 2 minutes. He wasn't. He was back in 20. Because down in the cellar, beneath the barrels and winter stores, he found footprints. Fresh ones. Snow melted off boots that had stood there less than an hour ago, and wedged behind a support beam lay a scrap of cloth, yellow leather, same color as Silas Crowe's gloves. Someone had already been inside his house. Not a siege, a snake. When Wade climbed back up the ladder, his face was carved from ice. Wade? Price asked. What did you find? He didn't answer at first. He just shut the cellar door and slid the iron bar into place. Then he checked his revolver, each bullet clicking with the certainty of judgment. He's not forming a perimeter, Wade said finally, voice low, steady, lethal. He's already breached. Lena's fingers tightened on the stick, and from the ridge above the ranch, 3 lanterns flared to life, signals in the dark. Not waiting. Calling. Night fell hard across the valley, thick and unforgiving. The lantern signals on the ridge burned like false stars. 3 steady flames, spaced wide, a hunter's constellation marking where the traps would close. Inside the ranch house, the fire hissed low. Maria fed the children broth 1 spoon at a time, whispering prayers between each swallow. Dr. Price cleaned his instruments in silence, the clink of metal sounding far too loud for a home that should have been safe. Wade Sterling stood at the window, rifle across his arms, watching the dark. "He's tightening the ring," he said. "By morning he'll seal every road." Price frowned. "We need the federal inspector before then." "We need the letter first," Wade said. "The judge's signature won't mean a thing without it." Lena looked up from Noe's blanket, face pale beneath the firelight. "Mama said the letter tells how he forged everything. The land papers, the guardianship, the church ledger, everything." Wade turned toward her slowly. "And you're certain it's still under the altar stone?" Her voice was barely breath. "He doesn't kneel. He wouldn't know where to look." Silence thickened. Maria set her spoon down, crossed herself, then rose with a decision carved into her posture. The kind of decision old women make when they've outlived enough fear to recognize what truly matters. "I will go," she said. Wade spun. "Maria, absolutely not." "I am the only one they will not expect," she answered. "A tired woman with a shawl. They will not stop me to search my pockets." "You're not going." His voice was iron, but Maria stepped closer, eyes shining with the stubborn faith only women forged in sorrow ever carried. "Senor Sterling, he hunts you. He hunts her. He hunts the doctor. But me?" She lifted her chin. "I am invisible to men like Silas Crowe." Lena shook her head, panic rising. "He hurts people who help us. He hurt Mama first." Maria knelt beside her, cupped her cheek with a hand roughened by years of wood smoke and labor. "Mija, listen. Your Mama's words, those words inside the letter, they can break this man, shatter him. I will bring them back." Wade reached for Maria's arm. "You're not strong enough." She smiled, a tired, fierce smile. "I am strong enough to walk to my church. This isn't about—" "No," Maria interrupted. "This is exactly about God's house." Her voice trembled, but not with fear. "If evil can walk into a church to hide its sins, then I can walk into a church to steal them back." Price stepped closer. "Wade, she's right about one thing. They won't look twice at her." Wade's eyes darkened. "They might shoot twice." Maria wrapped her shawl around her shoulders. "Then they aim poorly." Lena's breath stilled. Noe whimpered, sensing the tension. Wade paced once, twice, the boards groaning under his boots. He hated this. Hated being boxed in while people he cared about stepped into the line of fire. "Not again," he told himself. "Please, God, not again." But prayer didn't open roads. It didn't undo siege lines. "Fine," Wade said finally, voice low enough to scrape. "But you take the hidden path behind the stables, and if you see so much as a shadow—" "I dive into the snow," Maria finished. See, I have lived through many winters, Senor. Price handed her a small lantern with a covered wick. Keep it dim, just enough to see your feet. Maria leaned down, kissed Lena's temple. I'll come back before the fire needs another log. Lena grabbed her wrist. Don't let him see you. I am an old woman, Maria whispered. He sees only what he fears. That is not me. She slipped out the back door, closing it gently behind her. The house inhaled her absence, a soft, trembling void. Minutes stretched thin. Snow brushed the window like ghost fingers. Wade circled the rooms, checking locks, checking rifles, checking the children, as if counting breaths could anchor them to this world. Lena sat rigid, eyes glued to the door. She won't come back if he finds her, she murmured. He never lets people come back. Wade crouched beside her. She's smart. She knows these hills better than any man out there. But he knows how to hurt people, Lena whispered. He smiles first, then he hurts. Wade rested a hand on the floor, steadying himself. Not this time. He tried to believe it. He failed. Outside, something cracked. A branch, or a boot on frozen earth. Noe stirred in his sleep. Price reached instinctively for his revolver. Lena drew the stick to her chest. Wade moved to the window, lifting one corner of the curtain. Nothing but black. Nothing but waiting. Then, far across the snow, one faint flicker of light. Maria's lantern, moving slower than it should. Too slow. Wade's grip tightened on the windowsill. Price, get ready. For what? The doctor asked. Wade's breath came thin, sharp, certain. She's not walking alone. Snow carried sound strangely that night, softening some things, sharpening others. Wade heard the change before he saw it. Maria's lantern dipped once, swayed hard, then vanished behind a rise of snow, as though a hand had smothered it. Stay with the children, Wade said, already reaching for his coat. Price blocked the door with an arm. If you go rushing out, they'll shoot you before you clear the porch. Wade's jaw clenched. She's out there. And so are rifles pointed at this house. Price stepped closer, voice dropping. You leave. We lose everything. Her, the letter, the children. Lena sat stiff by the hearth, Noe asleep against her side. The stick held so tight her knuckles whitened. She looked at the men without blinking. If they hurt her, he'll make us hear it. Wade turned from the door, stared into the fire as though it might tell him what God himself would not. A man wasn't built to wait while wolves circled his gate. Not a man who'd already buried too much. 10 minutes crawled by. Then the back latch rattled softly. Not a knock, not a shove, a collapse. Wade was across the kitchen before the others rose. He dragged the door open, and Maria fell into his arms, blood spilling warm across the cold boards. Dios, she gasped, clutching at his coat. They watched the road, not the fence. Her shawl was torn. Snow stuck to a wound near her shoulder where cloth should have been. Under her arm, wrapped tight in oilskin, was a bundle no bigger than a hymn book. Lena rose unsteadily. Did you get it? Mama's letter, did you? Maria nodded, teeth chattering. Under the altar stone, just like she said. She pressed the bundle to her chest, as though it were a swaddled infant. I did not let it go. Wade lifted her to the table. Price shoved aside bowls and instruments, tearing open his bag. "Keep pressure here," he barked, guiding Wade's hand to the wound. Bullet grazed, knife after. They wanted to slow her, not kill her. Maria gave a broken laugh. "That man, he does not kill until someone watches." Lena flinched, the memory too sharp, too close. Outside, a rifle cracked. Short, sharp, intentional. A warning. Wade straightened slowly. They know she made it back. Another shot tore bark from the porch post. Price cursed. "They're pushing us into negotiation." Wade wiped blood from his fingers, walked to the back door, and opened it just enough for his voice to carry across the yard. "You fire one more round toward this house," he called, "and you answer to the federal inspector arriving at dawn." A man's voice, smooth, practiced, cutting even through the storm, answered from the tree line. "Mr. Sterling," Silas Crowe called, "your concern for the help is touching, truly, but the children come with me. That is the law." Inside, Lena's pulse thundered. Law. He always said it that way, like the word itself was a knife. Price whispered, "They'll try to trade Maria for the children." "No," Wade said, "not happening." Another shot, closer. Glass quivered in the window panes. Silas's voice curled through the dark like smoke. "Mr. Sterling, you have a wounded woman bleeding out. You have a doctor with limited supplies. And you have 2 children you cannot move." A pause. "I offer mercy. Give me the girl and boy, and I will send you a proper nurse." Lena's breath hitched. Maria shook her head weakly. Wade felt heat rise in his chest. Not anger, something colder, older. He stepped out onto the porch, letting the lantern behind him frame his silhouette. "You're not taking them." Silas clicked his tongue. "A shame. I thought a businessman might see reason." "I am seeing reason," Wade said. "Reason to stand my ground." A long silence followed. Then, "Very well, Mr. Sterling. Dawn, then. You have until dawn." Figures moved in the tree line. 5, 6, maybe more, melting back into the dark. Wade returned inside, bolting the door. Price was already stitching Maria's wound, jaw tight. Lena stood near the table, holding the oilskin bundle with both hands, as if afraid it would vanish if she blinked. She whispered, "Mr. Sterling, if he gets the letter, he wins." Wade knelt in front of her. Snow dust clung to his beard, blood to his cuffs. "Child, listen to me. He won't get it." His voice dropped, steady as bedrock. "Not while I'm still standing." Lena swallowed, eyes burning. "He always takes things from us." Wade held her gaze, unblinking. "Not this time." Noe stirred, letting out a faint cry from the hearth blanket. As if in answer, the wind outside shifted, no longer a storm, but the breath before something breaks. Price tied off the last stitch. "She'll live," he said, though his face stayed grim, "if we make it through the night." Wade rose, checked the rifle by the window, and scanned the shadows beyond the porch. Somewhere out there, Silas Crowe was smiling. And somewhere beneath that smile, dawn waited to decide who survived it. The storm quieted toward midnight, but the silence it left behind was worse. A stillness thick enough to hear the house breathe, thick enough to feel when the enemy drew nearer. Wade Sterling checked each window again, lantern low, finger brushing the edges of the frames where the cold crept in. He paused at the front room, listening. Footsteps far off, soft, deliberate. "They're shifting positions," Price whispered from the hallway. "They're waiting for us to panic." Lena sat on the rug with Noe in her arms, rocking him gently, though her own body trembled. Maria slept fitfully on the table, face pale but breathing steady under the blankets. Wade scanned the children, then the door, then the ridgeline beyond the glass. Crowe knows Dawn ends this. He'll force our hand before that. Lena swallowed hard. "He won't go away." "No," Wade said, "but he'll make a mistake." "If he pushes us first," Wade added in his mind. "God, give me that much." Minutes dragged. Noe whimpered, hungry again. Lena hushed him, pressing her cheek to his hair. She met Wade's eyes, and in that instant, something in her face changed, something sharpened. "I know how to stop him," she said quietly. Wade crouched. "Child, this isn't your burden." "But it is," she answered. "He needs me alive. He needs Noe alive. He won't shoot if I walk out there." Wade froze. "No." She tightened her hold on Noe. "He always wants to look into someone's eyes before he hurts them. He wants control. If I walk out, he'll stop everything to talk." "Lena," Price warned, "don't even finish that thought." But she did, and her voice didn't crack once. "You can get Noe into the smoke cellar while he watches me. You can move Maria. You can aim without him knowing. You can make him think he's winning." Wade gripped the edge of the table, knuckles pale. "Child, if you step outside that door, he will take you. There won't be a second chance." She shook her head. "There never was a first chance." The words hit Wade harder than any bullet. He saw the bruises branded into her skin, the burns on her arm, the small, stubborn jaw of a girl who had learned the world through pain and still held her baby brother like a shield. "I should have found them sooner," Wade thought. "God forgive me." Price tried again. "You're injured. Your leg." "I can stand," Lena said, and pushed herself up. Her breath caught from the pain, but she didn't fall. Wade stepped forward, hands raised as though approaching a frightened colt. "Lena, look at me." She did. "You're under my protection now," he said softly. "That means I make the dangerous choices, not you." Her lip quivered, but only for a heartbeat. Then she straightened her shoulders. "Mr. Sterling, this time I need you to trust me." Something broke inside him at those words. She reached beneath her blanket and pulled out the wooden measuring stick, its etchings worn, edges scarred. She held it like a banner. "He wants this. He needs to know I still have it." Wade exhaled slowly, painfully. "If you go out there, you do not go alone." Price whispered, "Wade." "Get your coat," Wade said without turning, "and stay behind me." But Lena shook her head. "If you walk with me, he'll shoot you before I take 3 steps. He'll think it's a trick." Wade knew she was right, and the knowing cut deeper than the fear. A shout cracked the night. "Sterling!" Silas Crowe's voice rang through the yard. "It's nearly dawn. Bring me the children, and I'll let the woman live." Maria stirred weakly. "Don't let him. Don't let him touch them." Lena stepped toward the door. Wade blocked her with one arm. "You wait until I circle behind the feed shed. I'll get a sightline. You walk slow, no sudden moves. You stop if I say stop. She nodded once. But as Wade reached for his rifle, Lena leaned close enough that only he heard her. "If he grabs me," she whispered, "just get Noe out." That was the thread that broke something in him completely. "Child, don't say that. It's the truth." Wade shut his eyes. "Lord, if you're listening, please don't take another child from me." Then he opened the door. Cold air knifed into the house. Snow swirled around Lena's bare ankles. She stepped out, stick in hand, chin lifted toward the dark, where silhouettes waited. "Crowe!" she called, voice ringing clearer than her trembling bones should have allowed. "I'm here." The shapes in the tree line shifted, stopped, and every rifle lowered, just enough to let her walk. Price whispered behind Wade, "She's braver than any of us." Wade didn't answer. He was already slipping into the shadows, rifle low, heart thrumming like a war drum. Because bravery meant nothing if he failed her now. And the night felt far too quiet for God to be finished with them yet. Dawn hadn't come yet, but the night had thinned into that gray hour when sins look larger than men. Lena walked across the yard with her stick clutched to her chest, her breath a trembling mist in the cold. Silas Crowe stepped from the tree line like a man arriving early to his own sermon. Buttoned coat, gold gloves, false gentleness wrapped around every word. "There you are," he said. "Graceful as always, child." Lena did not bow her head. "You want the stick. You want the letter. I'm here." Silas smiled, a small curve of the mouth, soft as velvet, cold as a blade. "Of course you are. You've always been obedient when properly motivated." She tightened her jaw. "I'm not with you anymore." "Not yet," Silas corrected. "But you will be." He reached out his gloved hand. "Come along. We'll speak inside the church. A holy place. Fitting for confessions." Behind the feed shed, Wade Sterling watched through the sights of his rifle, breath steady, finger still. He knew Crowe's type. Men who carried cruelty like a second skin. Men who believed God owed them forgiveness because they knew how to pronounce his name. "I've fought this kind before," Wade thought, "but not with a child standing in the crossfire." Silas gestured toward the small white church at the edge of the property. 2 lanterns burned beside the door, their glow flickering against frost-bitten paint. "Walk ahead," he told Lena, slowly. She obeyed, limping, leaning on the stick, every step pulling fire through her broken leg. 2 of Crowe's men shadowed her, not close enough to touch, close enough that she felt their breath. Wade matched their pace in silence, weaving between shadows, boots muffled by snow. He kept the church door in view. He kept Lena in view. And he kept prayer in his chest even when his hands felt too ready for killing. Inside the church, the air smelled of candle wax and cold hymnals. The pews sat crooked in the dim, their wood swollen from years of winter prayer. Lena paused at the aisle, eyes on the altar stone where her mother had once knelt. Silas closed the door behind them with a click that sounded too loud in holy space. "Now," he said softly, "show me where you hid the letter." Lena clutched the stick tighter. "You won't hurt anyone if I do?" "I give you my word," he said. Wade, now crouched beneath the stained glass window outside, almost laughed. A dry, humorless thought passed through him. The devil loves offering his word when God isn't asked to witness it. Lena limped toward the altar. The lantern Silas carried threw her shadow long across the wall, small body stretched into someone older, someone who'd lived too much. "It's behind the stone," she said, pointing with the stick. "But you won't reach it without scraping your glove." Silas smirked. "Clever girl? Still trying to delay me?" "No," she said. "Just telling the truth." He leaned down, setting the ascent lantern on the step. His fingers slid along the edge of the altar stone. "This one? Or the one beside it?" "The left," she whispered. He bent lower, and that's when she moved. Lena grabbed the brass candlestick from the lectern, lifted it with both shaking hands, and swung with all the strength fear and fury could give a wounded child. The blow glanced off Silas's shoulder, not his skull. The candlestick clattered across the floorboards. Lena stumbled on her bad leg, hitting the ground with a breathless cry. Silas straightened slowly, too slowly, the kind of slowness that made even God grow quiet. "You should not have done that," he said. Lena crawled backward, palms scraping wood. "Stay away." He reached for her collar. "I warned you." A footstep echoed from the stairwell leading down into the church cellar. Silas froze. Lena's eyes widened, not with fear, but recognition. Wade stepped into the sanctuary, rifle lowered but ready, his silhouette framed by the lantern's glow. His voice was steady as the oak beams above them. "She's under my protection," he said. "You want her, you go through me." Silas smiled again, but this time there was no warmth, only calculation. "Mr. Sterling, what a surprise. Or perhaps, not a surprise at all." Wade kept moving, slow, deliberate, boots silent on the boards. "Step away from the child." Silas lifted his gun. "You're outnumbered." "Maybe." Wade stopped 5 paces from him. "But you're in God's house, and I don't miss in God's house." For one suspended breath, no one moved. Then the wind outside shifted, rattling the stained glass, and Lena, small, trembling, clutching the stick to her chest, realized something terrifying and holy at once. God wasn't done with any of them yet. For a heartbeat, the church held its breath. Snow tapped the stained glass like distant fingers. Silas Crowe kept his pistol leveled at Lena, his eyes flicking between Wade and the girl, as though weighing which life bought him more time. Wade eased another step forward. "Let her stand." Silas's smile thinned. "Mr. Sterling, you walked into a snare. Again." He nudged Lena with the barrel of his gun, forcing her upright. "You think righteousness is enough to win this valley?" Wade's grip tightened around the rifle. "I think a man becomes what he protects." Silas tilted his head. "And what happens when the thing he protects is already mine by law?" Lena flinched at the word mine. The memory of every bruise flickered through her face, but she did not cry. She only stood straighter, wobbling on her injured leg, eyes fixed on Wade like he was the only thing keeping her breathing. Wade forced his voice steady. "Crowe, we sent a telegram last night." He nodded toward the door. "Federal eyes are riding this way." For the first time, Silas's expression cracked. Not fear, calculation slipping. "They're hours away." "Closer," Wade said. "Storm worked in our favor." A muscle in Silas's jaw jerked. He pressed the gun harder against Lena's arm. "Then we finish this before they arrive." Lena sucked in a breath as the cold metal bit her skin. Wade stepped forward, rifle low but ready. "You fire that weapon, Crowe. The marshal won't need a trial. He'll hang you on sight." Silas barked a laugh. "You think I need a gun to kill a child? You've forgotten who has the leverage." Wade's voice dropped. "I have enough leverage to end this right now." Silas met his eyes, and for a moment something like recognition passed between two men who both knew the weight of death too well. Then Silas said, almost gently, "If I die here, my men torch your ranch. They kill your doctor. They drag your housekeeper into the snow. Everyone burns with me." Wade felt the world narrow around him, the cold settling into his bones. "Lord, what choice do you want from me?" He lifted the rifle higher. Silas shifted Lena in front of him like a shield. "Take the shot, Mr. Sterling. Kill a child to stop a tyrant. Do it." Lena's breath caught. Don't let him touch me again." Those words broke something in the rafters of Wade's heart. He lowered the barrel a fraction. Not out of surrender, but because one wrong twitch could end the only life in that room that truly mattered. Silas exhaled softly, triumphant. "Hand the girl over. I walk out that door, and your precious ranch stays standing." Wade shook his head. "You walk out that door, and this valley dies under you." "Brave," Silas murmured. "Foolish, predictable." He shoved Lena toward the aisle. She stumbled, catching herself on a pew, eyes darting to Wade. "Don't leave me," her look said. "I won't," Wade Onton murmured. One quiet slip into first person, raw enough to scrape. "Not again." Wade moved first. Silas jerked the gun toward him. Lena screamed, and the church erupted. Wade kicked the lantern, plunging the sanctuary into half-dark. Silas fired, missed by inches, bullet tearing into the altar wood. Wade lunged across the aisle, grabbing the pistol hand, driving it sideways toward the wall. Silas's knee slammed into Wade's ribs. Wade drove his shoulder forward, the rifle clattering to the floor. The two men struggled, breath ragged, boots scraping the boards. Lena, trembling, crawled behind the pews, clutching the stick tight. "Please, God, let him win, just once." Silas twisted free and shoved Wade back into a row of benches. "You think you can drag justice out of the dirt?" he hissed. "Justice follows signatures, seals, men like me." Wade gasped, drawing breath through broken air. "Justice follows truth." Silas raised the pistol, ready, steady. Then the sound hit them both, a distant thunder of hooves rolling across the frozen ground. Silas's eyes widened. "No, not yet." Wade seized the moment. He drove upward, knocking the pistol from Silas's hand. It skidded across the floor, disappearing beneath the altar step. Silas staggered backward toward the small hatch near the choir loft, the old coal chute leading outside. His body wavered between fight and flight. Wade leveled his rifle. Silas froze. Both men stood suspended between two futures, one soaked in blood, one in chains, and the world outside thundered closer. The gunshot never came. Silas Crowe stood with his back to the old coal hatch, chest rising and falling in sharp, angry bursts. Wade kept the rifle leveled, breath steady now, steady in a way only a man who'd survived too much could be. Snowlight leaked through the stained glass, painting them in fractured blues and reds, like judgment itself had descended to watch the ending. Behind the pews, Lena clutched the stick to her chest, crawling toward Noe's soft whimpers. Price had followed Wade's tracks inside, arriving just as the echo of hooves deepened into a drum roll that shook frost from the rafters. "Wade," Price whispered. "They're here." Federal riders. The inspector. The law Silas couldn't buy. Silas heard it too. The facade cracked, first in the eyes, then in the corners of his mouth. "It doesn't matter," he spat. "I still win if I walk out with the girl." "You're not walking out with anything," Wade answered. "Except chains." Silas lunged for the coal hatch. Wade fired. Not to kill. To stop. The bullet struck the frame inches from Silas's hand, splintering wood in a spray of dust. Silas froze, chest heaving, then stumbled backward, boot catching the edge of the chute. His balance wavered. The world seemed to hold itself still. Then Silas slipped. He fell backward out the hatch, sliding down the icy shaft, hitting the ground in a choked groan as dawn's gray light finally crested the ridge. Lena gasped. Price rushed to her, lifting her gently, checking her arm, her leg, brushing tears she didn't realize were falling. Noe reached for Wade from the pew, tiny fingers trembling. Wade collapsed beside them, rifle still in hand, breath leaving him like he'd been holding it for years. "Thank you. Lord, thank you," he thought, though the words came out only as a broken exhale. Outside, riders thundered into view, federal coats, brass badges catching the morning light. The first marshal dismounted before his horse had fully stopped, boots sinking into the snow as he took in the scene. The church, the broken hatch, the girl bleeding from the knee but alive, the rancher standing guard like a sentinel carved from winter stone. "Sterling," the marshal called. "You sent a wire?" "I did." "You said fraud, abuse, forged documents, attempted murder of a minor?" Wade nodded. "And the man responsible just crawled out of your coal chute." Two marshals hauled Silas up from the snow. He fought until one cracked him across the jaw with a baton, sending him limp into the snowdrift. His gold gloves lay scattered like fallen leaves. "Search him," the marshal ordered. "Get the wagon, and someone help those children." For the first time since entering the church, Lena's shoulders loosened. Just a fraction. Just enough. Wade lifted Noe into his arms. The boy burrowed into his coat like he'd known him forever. "You're safe, son," Wade whispered. He hadn't meant to say son. It slipped out like a truth he'd carried too long. Lena heard it. Her eyes widened. Not in fear, but in something softer. Something dangerous. Something like hope. "Don't break them," Wade begged inside. "God, don't break me trying to fix them." Marshals carried Silas to the wagon, shackled and groaning. Snowflakes collected on his hair as if winter itself was claiming him. One marshal knelt beside Wade. "Inspector Harding," he introduced. "We'll need statements, evidence, the letter." Wade nodded toward Lena. "It's hers." Lena held the oilskin bundle with both hands, shaking. She looked to Wade, not for permission, but for courage. He gave a small nod. She stepped forward. "This is my mother's handwriting," she said, voice brittle but clear. "He forged everything else, but he couldn't forge her." Harding accepted the letter with solemn care. This will put him away for life. Lena let out a sound, half sob, half breath, like something uncoiled inside her chest after years of being wound tight. Price ushered Maria from the wagon where marshals had been tending her wound. She looked pale but awake, clutching her shawl. "Nina," she whispered to Lena, "you did so well." Lena choked, burying her face into Maria's shoulder. Noe stretched small fingers toward both, wanting everyone close, wanting the room full of beating hearts. Wade stepped outside the church doorway, watching sunrise bleed over the valley. The cold didn't bite anymore, not the way it had the night before. A man could almost imagine spring somewhere beyond the ridge. Harding came to stand beside him. "You'll need to decide where those children go now. Guardian ad litem can place them by week's end." Wade stiffened. "What?" "They survived, but they can't just live here unsupervised." Wade stared at the snow, throat tightening. "They won't survive another stranger." Harding studied him for a long beat. "You willing to make it official? You willing to take them as your own?" Wade felt something old and buried rise in him, a pain he'd thought he'd laid in the ground with his wife and little girl, a fear that taking a child's hand again meant risking a grave again. But when he turned and saw Lena standing in the doorway, leaning on Maria, Noe tucked under her arm, something inside him answered before he could breathe. Yes. He walked toward them. Lena watched him with those wide, frostbit eyes, eyes that had seen too much darkness for a child, but somehow still recognized a lantern when it was lit. "Mr. Sterling, are they taking us away?" she asked. He knelt, one hand steadying her as the other brushed snow from Noe's hair. "Not if I have anything to say about it." "You mean we stay here?" "If you want to." Lena's lip trembled. "Do you?" Wade swallowed hard. "Child, this house had ghosts before you walked in. You pushed them out." He paused, voice cracking. "Once. Just once. I'd be proud to have you stay." Lena leaned forward slowly, cautiously, as though expecting the world to snap again. Her forehead rested against Wade's shoulder. Noe pressed his cheek into Wade's collar. Maria wiped her eyes. Price turned away, clearing his throat. The marshal signed the temporary custody form on Wade's saddle. "I'll send the final papers next week. Congratulations, Sterling." Snow began to fall. Not cruel this time, but gentle, softening the edges of the world that had tried to break these children. The storm had passed. The valley breathed. And somewhere deep inside the man who once believed he'd lost his family forever, a quiet truth settled like warm ash. You don't choose the day you become a father again. Sometimes God chooses it for you. Wade looked at the children in his arms, at Maria, at the church behind them, at the dawn pushing night from the hills. "Let's go home," he said. And for the first time, the word home didn't echo hollow in his chest. It echoed full, alive, chosen.